Welcome back into Foolish Club Media. It is a show and BK edition of the post-game show. And really, I guess it's the in-game show is we're not even to the fourth quarter of the Chiefs preseason finale. They're down 34-7 to the Chicago Bears. And has not been a very fun game for the Chiefs backup players. But we still wanted to get you guys your dose of show and BK coupled with the post-game show, react to the Chiefs' final preseason game, and our thoughts as we turn the page to the Chiefs regular season. And
just want to say, hey, big day from Cairo Santos. I mean, he's
monster performance. Great. Ron Hughley, Brandon Kiley. I'm Stephen Serda, and I'm happy that we decided to go early because I just don't have it in me to do this full post-game show after this preseason game. It has not been a very fun performance for the Kansas City Chiefs. Louis Rees-Sammet just tried to bring a kickback. He has not done much of anything. Not a lot going on positive for the Kansas City Chiefs on Thursday night. But got a few things that we want to get to tonight and dive into as we turn the page to the regular season for the Kansas City Chiefs. And fellas, I think where we have to start, one of the biggest things for the Chiefs we knew going into the season was these contracts with these guys that they had coming up. And they get a huge one done on Thursday just before kickoff of their preseason finale against the Chicago Bears. They ink Creed Humphrey to a massive extension that makes him the highest paid center in the NFL.
Are we in a place where centers are getting $50 million guaranteed? Is that where we are? $50 million guaranteed. What a life. 4 years, $72 million, $50 guaranteed. I mean, I knew this was going to get done, but damn, it's just $50 million to centers. Wow. Good for you, Creed.
Not just that. This is not a Chiefs get a new market deal for a center. They reset the market completely. The current top paid center in the league prior to Creed Humphrey's extension in an AAV sense was Frank Ragnow. Ron, have you looked up what Frank Ragnow was making prior to this deal? You're on mute, my man.
Yeah, we're live.
I don't know what the line is.
We don't go live very often on this show.
I mean, look here. I'm trying to be respectful. I generally don't on mute, but I'm trying to be respectful. No, I don't know what the Lions paid him.
$13.5 million per year. The Chiefs just gave Creed Humphrey $18 million per year. The Chiefs just gave him the equivalent in terms of the gap between now the top paid center in the league and the second highest paid center in the league. The equivalent of the gap between the second highest paid center and the seventh highest paid center in the NFL. This was a massive change in the market for centers in the league. I'm not surprised that they got this done. I'm not surprised that it was a bigger contract than we anticipated. I am still yet surprised that it was $18 million on an annual basis. It's worth it. You got to get it done. You had to get this deal done. This was the priority all along among the potential free agents for next year. But man, that's a boatload of money for any interior offensive lineman.
And Brett Veach said on the broadcast, we had some really good conversations here the last 24, 48 hours. Hell, I bet you have. What did Creed say? Okay, I guess. 18 million. I'm going up 5 on these jokers. But no, we'll see what this means for guys like Trey and the other young guys that are going to come up. But yeah, man, I mean, I think we knew this was going to happen. And look, you got to trust the Chiefs that they're not going to put themselves in a tough situation. The salary cap keeps going up. So I think they'll be fine and be able to sign the guys that they need. And I mean, I just look at this as this is a need guy, right? This is a guy I think that you have to keep. Now, I remember we had discussions about his value and other things. And we talked about Patrick Surtain and stuff. But for this team, this is a big value type player for them. And Creed Humphrey attached to Patrick Mahomes. I think right now he's the best center in the game. That fair, I think he's the best center in the game right now, especially since Jason Kelce's retired. So this makes sense. They'll get it done. Good for you, Creed.
I do wonder, like, I'm curious, Serda, do you think this means anything for Trey Smith? Because that feels like the next one that they were going to try to get done. And at $18 million per year, are you going to be able to do both of those?
Yeah, it kind of always felt to me like it was, and the Chiefs are going to say, well, we want to sign all of our good players and keep all of our good players around. But it probably just wasn't going to happen in the contracts that we're seeing these guards get now, because it's just hard to find good offensive linemen. And we see so many awful offensive lines across the NFL. Like, guards are just getting paid outrageous sums of money now. And so it always felt to me like it was more likely that Trey Smith was going to hit the market than it was that Creed was. And the Chiefs totally resetting the center market is not necessarily something I expected, but maybe that just has to do with the salary cap going up and the Chiefs just expecting the cost of these offensive line contracts to just continue to climb. And so they were like, let's just get out ahead of this thing and make Creed happy, because we do think he is the best center in football. And they obviously believe that he's a cornerstone of their team. And, then heading into next season, like if they have to make a decision on like Tooney or Trey Smith, they'll work that out. And I don't really know what it means for Nick Bolton, though, because I think it just depends on, like, Bolton's got to stay healthy and he's got to stay on the field. And then also, like, is he worth like a top 5 linebacker contract? Like, I like Nick Bolton as a player, but I don't know if I'm willing to make him one of the highest paid linebackers in football.
The other thing that you could do there is just franchise tag him, right? Like if you're going to end up available, if you're going to go that route, and if he wants to be paid like a top 5 linebacker in the league, well, okay, the franchise tag is the average of the top 5 players at that position. Maybe we just do one more year with the franchise tag and then kind of figure out where it's at from there to see if you can stay healthy for another season as well.
Yeah. Listen, it's done. I think this was the move. I think people are happy with it. Creed is a guy. He's probably going to buy a boat for Oklahoma, and he's going to kick it there. And I'm glad he got. 15 mil, man. Dang, is this where the league is going? Center's getting $50 million, man. That's amazing. That's amazing, because, like, you brought up Nick Bolton. Like, what's Nick Bolton going to get guaranteed? Like if they gave him a good deal, what's he going to get? 30?
About 50.
This
is the new market, guaranteed, man.
Really?
Yeah. He's going to get if he's going to get a top 5.
Reset. But he's not resetting that mark. Is that top 5 is 50 for middle linebackers?
That's pretty much the best ones now that are getting new deals. They're getting around 40 to 50. Fred Warner 40, Tremaine Edmonds 50, Roquan Smith 60. Yeah. So he's not resetting the market or anything, but he'll probably get in that range.
I felt like he'd be in that Patrick Queen range. That's what I kind of thought he'd be in.
I think that's where the Chiefs would like him to be. I think if he's going to sign a new contract here, I bet you it's around that $18 million range as well.
Yeah, I think his agent's going to point to that Tremaine Edmonds contract, because it's not a knock on Nick Bolton, but Nick Bolton's not in the same ballpark as Fred Warner and Roquan Smith. Like, I'm not willing to reset the market for Nick Bolton, but maybe some team out there is willing to give him that kind of contract. But I do think moving forward, like, I think that we saw that the Chiefs made the guys who they know were priorities and the guys that they think are cornerstones, and they got those deals done. And so I think it says a lot about like where their heads are at, and we'll see what happens with these other contracts. They've got some decisions to make, but I think Creed Humphrey was a guy that you needed to get done, because you just don't, like, Trey Smith is a really talented guard, but Creed Humphrey is the best center in football. Like, that's a position that you just do not have to worry about now. And you got it locked up for the long-term future. So
it is interesting though, Serda, because like it goes against everything that Andy has done in his entire time in Kansas City, certainly, but even dating back to Philadelphia, where like it seemed like every 4 years you just get a new center, right? You'd get the rookie, he'd play for 4 years, he'd be really good, he'd make big money elsewhere, and they'd move on from him. And this is the first time where we've seen it, where that guy comes in, starts for 4 years, is excellent for all 4 seasons, and then gets the massive market-setting deal with Kansas City.
Yep. As you said, with Mitch Morris and Rodney Hudson before that, they would use them up and then let them get paid, like the Cardinals paid, the Raiders paid Hudson, and then the Bills went ahead and paid Mitch Morris. So no, yeah, good call on that.
So the Chiefs are finally moving the ball with Ian Book in his quarterback now, as Chris Oladokun had a very rough night, but they still trail the Chicago Bears 34-7 in the fourth quarter. But obviously, the biggest storyline, in my opinion, out of tonight is no longer fullback, in my opinion, but Chiefs running back 2, Carson Steele, continuing to have an incredible preseason, continuing to show that he can be a serviceable player for the Kansas City Chiefs, and continuing to be a fan favorite as he has just another
Steele. Like, I mean, they're gonna love this kid. And like, I'll be honest with you, I don't know what this means and how I feel that he is legitimately in the conversation to be the 2. And like, I just, like, in my mind, like, you know, it's a good story. We've seen some things, and he shaves his armpits like he's a swimmer. But he does, clearly. And I do too. I want to say you're not alone. I've started to do that over the last
I just don't grow
years.
hair in my armpits. Just
you don't really grow hair at all. You can't grow a beard like me and BK have. But and that's the truth. It's a weird feeling. Like, all right, is that good? Like, is this a deal of like, man, this is a find that they didn't know they had, that is a surprise and look out? Or is this something of like, hey man, the other options are so bad. We tried to turn Kadarius Toney into a running back, and you know, we got all these. I don't know that it's a good thing that he is tied to the hip of Pacheco or the number 2 potentially. I just
it makes me nervous that this is where we've arrived. I think Carson Steele might actually be like an okay player. He might end up being a decent running back. I do have legitimate questions as to what the depth at that position looks like right now, though. Like, I don't think anybody can honestly say whether or not Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to make this football team. I don't know how you could have an honest answer on that. Like, we haven't seen him play football in weeks now. And listen, we all want what's best for Clyde. Like, ultimately, this is something that is way bigger than football, obviously. But it ultimately becomes a football decision as to whether or not you can trust that he's going to be able to take the field for you. And right now, I think the answer to that question is no, you can't trust him to do that. Unfortunately, it sounds cold-hearted to say that, but it's eventually you got to make decisions to help your football team. So you've got Pacheco, you've got Carson Steele. I've said for a couple of weeks now, Ron, I don't think the number 2 running back for the regular season is currently on this roster. And I feel more firmly in that camp today than I have at any point previously. I think they've got to make a move there. I don't know if it's a trade, like some low-level trade. I'm not saying go out there and get like a top 5 running back in the league, but somebody that was probably not going to make another roster. And instead of having to pick him up off of waivers or sign him, you send like a 6th round future pick somewhere else, the way that the Texans did from Kansas City whenever they acquired Carlos Hyde from the Chiefs. I think that's the kind of move that they're going to have to take, because I wouldn't want to go into the regular season with Carson Steele as your clear and definitive number 2 running back. That doesn't feel like a good situation to me.
That's what I was going to say. Like, would he be the guy? Would he be the guy if something happened to Pacheco?
As of today, I have to imagine.
Not over Prince, right?
I'm not sure Prince is going to make the team now.
I think the only 2 running backs that are making the team for sure right now that are on the roster are Steele and Pacheco.
Yeah, it's Deneric Prince. After it's the 2nd year in a row, we had all of this like early training camp hype around his role, and the Chiefs have not deployed him that way in the preseason. And then tonight, it's like, you know, he gets stuffed tonight, and he just hasn't had an impact. Like, Carson Steele has flashed every time he's touched the football in the preseason. Deneric Prince has done absolutely nothing, and it was kind of the same thing last year after like a great training camp and hype around him. And then it's like he does absolutely nothing, has no role in the preseason, and then gets cut and just goes back to the practice squad. Like, maybe that's what's going to happen. But Carson Steele is definitively on the 53-man roster. But outside of that, yeah, him and Pacheco, I don't really know what the Chiefs are going to do. Maybe it's going to be Jerick McKinnon again, even though I've voiced my frustrations if that winds up being
no, but that's not the answer for this though. Like, this is more than Jerick McKinnon. Like, like Jerick McKinnon is to me is like, hey, we don't have a third down back or an extra weapon. This is we need somebody that, first off, like, Pacheco, just the way he runs probably lends him towards somebody being potentially injured or injury prone. He's like, how many times has he played all the games? We know he missed multiple games last year. And just the way he runs, you probably want to minimize his carries as opposed to other backs anyway. So this to me is not like a third down back or another weapon like I think McKinnon is. I mean, this to me is like you talked about Houston. That's one, like Damian Pierce. There's like kind of an issue with if he gets the system that they're running in Houston, and Cam Akers has maybe passed him up as the number 2, so he's potentially being looked at as a number 3. This is a 4th round pick who rushed for almost 1,000 yards in like 12 games in Houston 2 years ago. A young player, maybe that is somebody maybe you give a 6 to a flyer. Like, I think something like that, as opposed to a Jerick McKinnon, who is a limited player that's, not somebody you want to give the ball to 15 times in a game.
Samaje Perine is the guy to me that makes the most sense. Like, he's probably going to get cut by the Broncos. He's 29 years old. He's a good pass protector. He can help you out on third down. He's a bigger back, so he can play in some of those like short yardage situations as well. If you need him to come in and like start 2 or 3 games for you, he's capable of doing that. He, to me, feels like the no-brainer. If he becomes available, you go make that move immediately.
Yeah, I'd be on board with that. It definitely feels like, and we'll get into the depth a little bit. Oh, and the Chiefs just forced a turnover now. Now we're in business. 34-13.
I do want to address. I do want to address your lies, sort of. Like, you came in here, you're acting like, oh man, this has not been a very fun night for the Chiefs because, and you're watching. You went to the gas station. I'm glad you told us the activity you did at the gas station, when you could have just said, I left to go to the gas station, but you left to go to the gas station to get gas. Thanks for letting us know the activity. But you say, I left the gas to get gas, like you're at disgust. If this score was 34-14 Chiefs, you would feel the same way about this preseason game that nobody played in. So I want you to stop acting like the score of the game or like the Chiefs being down is what has hampered your excitement for this game.
I'm not taking anything away from this game as far as it's going to impact the regular season. This just was not a very good preseason finale for a Chiefs team that I have legitimate questions about their depth in multiple places. I feel like I wasn't so worried about it before we started playing preseason football. But
I just looked at the TV, and apparently that's not the 17. I'm used to it, so that's not even McCole Hardman out there running that ball back. That's somebody else on the defense wearing number 17 as well. So, like, I mean, this is like you're acting like, oh boy, this game is really touching me.
I think
I wish the Chiefs were doing better. Out of here.
I think they double up numbers sometimes before they do the cut downs, because now they just do the massive cut downs. They don't have to do like.
Oh yeah, I've seen 224s out there.
Kamal Haddon is number 17 on the defensive side of the ball.
Thanks, BK. That's what we were hunting for. We needed to know.
Nice play from the rookie to get us going and keep us watching here.
Yeah, JC Proctor and Phil Guy, they're listening to us on YouTube. They really needed it. Make sure you like and subscribe, please.
Yes, please. I do. After another impressive performance from Carson Steele, I don't think we can get out of here tonight without talking about Jaden Hicks. I know me and Ron have talked about him a ton on the Daily Fix. I think we talked about him on Show and BK last week. Jaden Hicks I know he got a lot of playing time. He played the entire first half for the Chiefs tonight as they were just getting him a lot of reps. And obviously they're thin in the safety room with all the guys sitting tonight. But Jaden Hicks, every time he has taken the field in the preseason, whether it's on defense or whether it's on special teams, has just made plays and made you notice him. And that's all you want to see from guys in the preseason. And I feel so much better about the Chiefs safety room now that it appears Justin Reed is going to be good to go week 1. Brian Cook's back and healthy. And you add Jaden Hicks and what he has shown in the preseason into the mix. Like, all of a sudden I'm back aboard the Chiefs safety room, even though I'm a little bit worried about some other spots on the roster.
I feel good about it. The biggest question was always, is Justin Reed going to be healthy? And now that we feel pretty strongly that he's going to be all right for the regular season, Hicks developing into a player that looks to be a real dude makes me feel really confident. I think you have 3 safeties once again this year that you can go into the season feeling good about if you've got to play them. And that doesn't include Shamari Connor, who is probably going to be spending the majority of his time in the nickel. So I think secondary wise, the spot that I'm very comfortable with right now is safety. I don't have that same comfortability at corner, and I don't think the Chiefs have that same amount of comfort at the corner position, but safety I feel good about.
Yeah, you mean that cornerback by committee over there at 2 spot that Andy Reid came out and told us about, and including Jalen Watson playing deep into the 3rd quarter as he's getting injured as well. So yeah, I get that. But this kid here, man, he's something else, and you're seeing it week by week, him getting it and getting more and getting more acclimated to the NFL game. And now he's playing the way he's playing without thinking. And I think the point you make with Justin Reed, there's no need to rush his development. There's no need to have to rush him onto the field because you need him. They can play him the way that they want to. And I've said this on multiple platforms here on Foolish Club, like week 8, week 9, week 10, and maybe earlier than that. Like he may be hard to keep off the field. Like it may get to that point, like Brian Cook started to become difficult to keep off the field later on in his rookie year. He might be difficult to keep off the field. So I really like what he's doing. Also want to throw in, obviously battling the quarterback play for him, Jarrett Wiley, a good one catch for 3 yards today, but ran some really good routes as well today. So obviously working with the quarterback handcuffs that he's working with tonight, but he still looked good as well. So I just wanted to throw that out as well.
So
the great.
I want to talk about some of the skill guys that we saw tonight, but before we do that, I want to talk about Jalen Watson just while we're on the secondary topic because you mentioned him, Ron. But Jalen Watson gets a ton of snaps tonight, plays late into the 3rd quarter, and it was basically just we're just trying to get him reps because he missed most of camp. He's been coming back from the shoulder injury and just hadn't gotten a lot of opportunities. Now, he did leave the field and looked like maybe he was favoring that shoulder that has been bothering him. So that could be an issue for the Chiefs. But also, Jalen Watson was kind of struggling. And so maybe there was something to that. Like they were just like, we just got to get him in game speed and get him going again. But it does feel like, 2 weeks away from the Chiefs opening up the NFL regular season, it feels like Joshua Williams is going to be their starting cornerback opposite of Trent McDuffie, with Shamari Connor heavily in the mix.
This is the spot to me. Like, I think there are a few spots on this roster right now that you look at and you're like, there's some serious question marks going into the year. And most of them are like depth things, right? Running back number 2. Left tackle number 2 with the Wanye Morris potential injury tonight. We'll see what ends up coming out of that.
This is front line, baby. This is front line.
Defensive end. You could use a little bit more depth there. Cornerback. This is different. This is
front line.
I don't know who's starting for you opposite Trent McDuffie right now. And I don't know if the Chiefs know who's going to be starting for them on opening night. Like maybe it's Joshua Williams, maybe it's Jalen Watson. If Najee Johnson was healthy, maybe he would be the guy going into week number 1. I don't know, Ron, and I don't feel great about any of it. I don't mind Jalen Watson or Joshua Williams. We've seen them play plenty over the last couple of seasons, and when they've been in there, they've mostly been all right. But if you're looking for like what could be the weakness on the defense heading into this season, that is very clearly the spot right now. It's CB2.
Listen, you're going to have to do what I've done. And to everyone listening, and this is not normally me. I'm normally not this fella. You got to take a deep breath. And Spags has reached the trust phase. Okay? It took me maybe 15, 16 years, and I know this is going to sound stupid. It took me about 15, 16 years to trust Bill Self and not really question some of his moves. But he's built it up. Andy Reid, still scratching my head. We'll get to Sky Moore at some point tonight, I hope, while he's still out here on the field. But I'm going to trust Andy on things. And Spags has shown us he can make it work with great corners and a great secondary. He can make it work with great safety play. He can make it work with great D-line play, not as good D-line play. He seems to make it work. And I don't think this is a year in which they have to absolutely have this defense to be right off the bat like they did last year. Hopefully this offense is going to be a little bit more explosive even without Hollywood Brown to start potentially. But I'm just going to have to trust that Spags is going to has figured it out and will figure it out until he gives me no reason to. This is not Bob Sutton. I think we can I think we got to just trust. Sorry, Bob, but we just got to trust. Like, I think we can trust Spags that he'll figure it out. He's been able to, you said it, he's been able to do it without great corners before.
It's also worth noting they have an elite number one, and that is not something that they've had in the past, right? So, like, if they could make it work in previous iterations of this defense with, like, Travarius as the number one, and they didn't have great number two corners at that point in time either. You had like Bashad Breeland. You should be okay. But again, this is just one of those things where like you take a little bit of a step back early in the season at defensive end because you don't have the Minihue. You maybe take a little bit of a step back as you guys have been concerned about at the linebacker position because you don't have Willie Gay, so you don't have the same amount of depth there. You take a step back at cornerback going into the season because you don't have L'Jarius Sneed. And now you have even bigger questions than you had going into camp about cornerback too. And so then it becomes something where, can you overcome that? Do they have the defensive line depth to be able to make up for that lack of a number two guy? I think ultimately it just puts that much more pressure on what they're going to get out of McDuffie. And he has to be every bit as good, if not better, than he was a year ago.
And fellas, like I think it's going to be interesting to see what kind of elite number one corner is Duffy. Like, I think you're talking about, is he a guy in which you can kind of trust him to be on an island by himself where you can lend more help the other way, or do you got to play it more straight up? You know, that's like, is he in the Sauce Gardner, Surtain type of a space where, all right, man, we can almost just say he's got it over there. Like, you know, we not sure we know that. We could depend on Sneed to do that at times last year. We'll see if McDuffie is that.
Yeah, I feel confident that he can be, but again, it goes back to the depth of this team. And just last year, they were just so incredible on the defensive side of the ball where even when they were fighting through injuries, they just had somebody who could come in and fill the hole, and you felt totally fine about it no matter what. Like, we knew that wasn't going to be the case coming into this season, so I would like to have a better idea of just what the starting rotation is going to look like in the secondary in week one, but just doesn't seem like we're going to have a definitive answer of that until the Chiefs take the field on Thursday night here in a couple of weeks. But I want to get back to some of the skill guys that we saw tonight. And as expected, Kadarius Toney, Mecole Hardman, Justin Ross all see significant snaps on Thursday night against the Bears. And I guess I feel like coming into this game, I was definitively like, Kadarius Toney is not making this team. But I think that we all thought Nico Remigio was definitely making this team. Now, Remigio does not get very much action tonight. And when he did, it was after Kadarius Toney as a return man later in the fourth quarter and in the third and fourth quarter. And so it's like, okay, so is Remigio the guy out now and Toney is going to find a way to stay on this team, but it's going to be as the Chiefs' primary kick returner and like a rotational player in the wide receiver room? And it kind of seems like that's the way that's going. Maybe Mecole Hardman's not totally safe either after I was just like, Mecole's going to make this team. We don't have to worry about it. And I think Justin Ross is probably going to be on the team. Like, I think all of these guys are going to wind up being on the team. And it just felt like in the past week, it felt like it was definitive that Kadarius Toney was not going to be on this roster. And now I'm not so sure.
I'm going to read you a quote. This is from Dave Toub earlier this week. Quote, "I love that guy. I'll be pounding the table for that guy to make the initial 53. End quote. That was Dave Toub talking about Nico Remigio. Nico Remigio is making this team. I thought it was kind of funny. I think it was Teicher who said that it was not great for Remigio that he only played a couple of snaps tonight. I just totally disagree with that takeaway from this. If I'm a player, I don't want to play in this game. The less reps that you get, the more likely it is that you're somebody, like, speaking by their actions, not their words, that the team is expecting to have a role going into this season. So my takeaway from tonight was actually really positive on Remigio, in that I think he's going to be somebody that is a 4-core special teamer for them. He's going to get probably the last wide receiver spot on the roster. And I think what my takeaway was, you're probably seeing Sky Moore, maybe. I think he's almost in a different category here, though. But you're seeing the other wide receivers that performed tonight, McCole Hardman, Justin Ross, Kadarius Toney. I think they're fighting for one spot on the roster. And I think that is why they got the majority of the reps tonight, is because there's one spot for the three of them.
Well, I get what you're saying, that like you don't want to play in this game. But what is the main spot that he's going to occupy on this team?
Nico, special teams.
Special teams, returns. And I get that, but Serda, again, when was it that he entered the game to do that?
And he was catching kicks after Kadarius Toney in the third and fourth quarter.
That's the only thing is. I understand you don't want to play, but
I think some of that might just be, and this sounds strange, I know, and maybe it's me like protecting my argument here. Some of that might be because Toney was already playing on offense. And so, like, if you already have a guy that is hyper fragile and gets hurt all the time, I don't want him going back out there in the second half after he's had all of his offensive reps in the first half to return a couple of kicks. And instead, you can just do that with Remigio. I don't know that that's what happened here, but that would be my guess.
And Toney is a player that, even though he's been really underwhelming in his NFL career, it is the kind of guy that, like, if you get some good tape on him in the final preseason game, maybe you can go flip him for a 6th or 7th round pick or something like that, because he isn't totally void of value as a player. Like, as we've seen from him, he flashes occasionally. It's just that they're way too inconsistent.
I don't know if you guys felt this way, but the one that surprised me most was how much McCole was playing tonight. I kind of just assumed that McCole would have a spot locked up, and I mean, maybe wrongly did so, but he was playing a ton. I mean, he was getting reps well into the second quarter.
And he had a really good kickoff return as well in this game that we'll see on that. I don't know, man. You could be right there. I just, like, they got that Washington cat who just made a great catch here, who just caught this previous punt. I mean, they got Phillip Brooks can catch punt. Like, they had guys that could have gone back there and returned that punt in the third quarter, especially if this is the guy that's going to be the one doing it in the regular season. So I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Who do you think ends up making this team wide receiver wise?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I have no idea. I'm serious. I almost told Serda that we need to get on the air right now, live, because I'm about to have a conniption if I'm reading stuff going into the game that Sky Moore's not going to play because he's got this thing locked up. And
I was shocked by that. I was shocked.
So I have no clue, because I don't like. Tonight, Sky Moore, did he get an offensive play?
He only played on special teams.
He only played on special teams. Like, I got no idea what. Like, I don't know, what was that for? Was that for, hey man, we already know we got you locked up, but we got some numbers. Let's get you some run here, or like I have no idea. Like, I have such confusion. Like, when you read that quote from Dave Tobel, I didn't know who he was talking about. I think there could have been a whole host of guys. If you'd have told me something about Kadarius, I could have heard that nut come up with that. So I've got no clue. The Sky Moore handling of things has just thrown me off. So I got no understanding of this.
It feels like, I think Sky is making this team, and maybe they just suited him up and put him out there just to have an extra body to throw in the mix.
They were thinking about not playing him.
It's just
what Tyser was saying.
And why? Like, if there was any chance that Sky wasn't going to make this roster, like, why would they have deployed him the way that they did in the first 2 preseason games? I just feel like I feel like that now I'm over analyzing everything that I saw tonight, and it's probably we should go back and look at the first 2 preseason games, and that's what actually matters. And nothing from tonight is actually meaningful to what the 53-man roster is going to be.
They deployed Sky Moore as if he was somebody that wasn't going to dress out today. That's how they played him the first 2 preseason games.
It's really shocking. The way that they are treating Sky Moore, because we've seen nothing from him. And based on all reports out of camp, it's not as if this is something where like, hey, the guy's practicing really well. It's just not translating into the games right now. No, he's, based on all the reports that I've seen at camp, done basically nothing there of significance either. Meanwhile, Justin Ross has had like a really good camp this year. Like the hype is actually stronger on Ross coming out of camp this year than it was last year. It's the post-hype sleeper thing where last year it was new and fresh and exciting, and this year it's just, hey, it's year 2 of Justin Ross doing this at Chiefs camp. So like if it was me, and it's a good thing that's not, because I would be terrible at this, but I wouldn't have Sky Moore on this roster. I would probably have Justin Ross, McCole Hardman, and Nico Remigio and say goodbye to Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. But it feels like they're not going to do that.
Yeah, I don't think I would have had either one of them in camp. Potentially,
fair.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, we thought about it, let's just wipe this thing clean, and let's just start over. Maybe you guys can find something with a new start as well. But I mean, listen, right now there is nothing that would surprise me. There are some things that would make me question and annoy me, but there is nothing that there is nobody in that receiver room that would make this team or get cut, of the people we're talking about, that would surprise me.
It's the Remigio thing is interesting, because I do think what BK was saying with Tobe is like Tobe carries weight when it comes to like those last couple of spots. And like when he loves guys, like we have seen that in the past, like guys wind up making the team because Tobe is like, no, you give me a couple of guys, and those are the guys that I need and that I'm telling you that I want on my unit. And so, yeah, I just feel like we had like a definitive what the wide receiver room was going to look like. And now I'm not so sure. But last thing before we wrap this thing up is the Chiefs still trail the Bears late in the fourth quarter of their preseason finale.
They got 21 on the board now.
Wanye Morris did leave Thursday's game with a knee injury, and we don't know the severity of that. I'm sure Andy Reid will speak on it after the game, and we'll probably find out more like sometime next week once the Chiefs are back on the practice field and doing whatever. But it is slightly concerning, and obviously Kingsley has definitively locked up the starting left tackle spot. Otherwise, like he wasn't even dressed tonight. Wanye was in the game early on and kind of got rolled up on a fourth down run where Deneric Prince got stuffed at the line of scrimmage. He leaves the game, and now it is a little bit concerning for the Chiefs' tackle depth, because we love that Kingsley is the starter and that he easily won that battle in camp. And then we love that Wanye is your rotational swing tackle now, who can be a serviceable guy and come in and give you valuable reps. But if this winds up being some kind of significant injury that could keep him off the field for a while, you're down to like Lucas Niang is the guy that you're kind of relying on if anything happens to any of your starters. And I don't think any of us really want Lucas Niang getting meaningful playing time for the Kansas City Chiefs in the regular season.
Hughley was a guy that ended up getting a decent amount of run early in camp. They seem to really like him. I don't know if they like him enough to be a swing tackle for you. Like, I don't think you feel great about that. If it's something serious, my guess is they would just call Donovan and just say, hey, man, like, you ready to go? You want to make a couple $1 million? Because we've got an opportunity for you here. And he becomes your swing tackle, and you kind of make it work that way. If it's just something that, hey, maybe Wanye is going to be out for a couple of weeks, you could probably make it work with Hughley as your swing tackle for that period of time. Lucas Niang there as well. I mean, worst case scenario, my guess is if something really did happen at tackle, they just bump out Joe Thuney, play Mike Caliendo at left guard, and make it work that way. It's not ideal, but they've had to do that in the past for a game, I believe it was. And Thuney can make it work if you need him to.
Yeah, I was going to say they seem to feel better about Lucas Niang now. I don't know if they feel better about him on the left side, but they seem to feel better about him now. Is he's what he started. No, he started the last preseason game with the ones at on the right side, but yeah, if it's long term, maybe there's something different. It just sucks for Wanye. Like, at this point, right here to happen right now, if it is a serious thing, but obviously it was reported apparent knee injury and wasn't going to return. But for the Chiefs, we'll see what happens. Obviously, we know they had issues where they had to have the swing tackle be put in the game multiple times last year. So we'll see. But hopefully it's not real serious. But overall, man, it kind of just sucks for him. I think the Chiefs are all right, trying to cover this right now. Obviously, with their frontline guys and being able to make something work with, as you said, at the very worst, could kick Tooney out, but something like that. I think they're all right here. I think this is more just tough for him.
Yeah, hopefully it's nothing serious. You hate to see that in the final preseason game after grinding all of training camp up in St. Joseph, Missouri, and it's a 4th and 1 play in a meaningless game, and you get rolled up on and have to leave the game with a knee injury. It's just not ideal, not where you want to be, but hopefully Wanye Morris is fine and we don't have to worry about the Chiefs tackle depth. But make sure you guys stay locked into Foolish Club Media. Me and Ron will be back tomorrow afternoon at 12 p.m. as we are each and every day. Latest episode of the Daily Fix, so make sure you check that out. As always, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review everything that we are doing. Follow us on YouTube to make sure you don't miss anything that we're doing there. And we are on to the regular season, so make sure you stay locked in right here because we'll have plenty of conversations and plenty of things to chat about as the Chiefs look to go for their 3rd straight Super Bowl. So not a very exciting end, but the Chiefs did officially lose 34-21 in their preseason finale. We'll talk to you guys again soon.